Hey, everybody, and welcome back. So, Doug Ford and his government are now behind or losing to the liberals or tied, depending on which polling statistics you're looking at. But that's that's not the sad part of it. The sad part of it is they're tied slash losing to a party that does not even have a leader. Like they have an interim leader, and whatnot, but no leader that's been voted by the liberal caucus to rally behind. They have no leader. It's an empty chair. He's losing to an empty chair. I never thought we would have another, like, you couldn't get a worse politician than Pierre Poilievre. You know, the one who lost 25-point lead 3 months before election, lost his own riding of 20 years with more than 3,000 votes. But here we are with Doug Ford, that had a 40% approval rating back in October of 2025, is now trailing the liberals that don't even have a leader. They don't have a leader. It's an empty chair. Like I every time I see it, I can't believe it. He's losing to an empty chair. And what was even better was earlier this year, I think it was back in February. Remember that video of him saying polls are for dogs? Let's take a look.
Polls are for dogs. And the only poll that counts is on election day. So all these pollsters, they're a little biased, pushing up one, bringing down the other. The people will decide. The people will decide if they want to go back to tax and spend governments, chasing 300,000 jobs out of the province. We've gained 1 million jobs. We've never raised taxes. If they want a tax and spend government, we aren't the ones.
Wow, that aged like fine milk. That was um, that was embarrassing, very embarrassing. Um, when he talks about tax and spend of the previous government, I agree, but brother, you may not be raising taxes, but you're spending worse than the liberals are. The private jet, $28 million. And the only reason you gave it back is because, of course, the poll numbers are horrendous and you got pushed back. The lawyer fees that he's spent $270,000 to fight Toronto on bike lanes. The $75 million he spent to run an advertisement in the US to explain to the Americans how tariffs are bad, because, of course, the Americans don't know that tariffs are bad, and only to piss off Trump. Didn't get anything out of that $75 million. Did we get closer to a deal? Did we get any tariff-free deal from that? $75 million. Don't forget about the tunnel underneath the 401. $10 million to get consultants, an engineering firm, to do a feasibility report. Did not report that. Did not publish that because he didn't like the findings. Then he spent another $10 million to get another company to do another feasibility reports for an idea nobody wants. What about the Billy Bishop Airport on the Toronto Island? Taking over Toronto lands, taking over green spaces, parks, to extend, eventually going to extend the airport to bring in jets, which we don't need for convenience or choice. We have a choice. It's called Pearson. Do you think it's going to be cheaper for the Toronto Island? They're going to charge you a bonus or a premium for convenience. It's not going to be any cheaper, and then the taxpayers are going to have to fit this bill. What about the Ontario Science Center that he's moving to Ontario Place? I think it was $1.6 or $1.3 billion over 30 years to build a new facility and maintain it for 30 years, even though we already have a facility that supposedly is unsafe, which is not, especially with the snow load that we had this past winter. Proved there's nothing wrong with that roof, even though the engineering report, when people looked over it, said there was really nothing catastrophic wrong with that roof. So the polls are not for the dogs. The polls actually show what the voters are thinking. Because if they were for the dogs, he wouldn't have given that jet back. He would have kept it because he wouldn't have believed it. But he does. And he knows he's in trouble. 47 to 36 or 37%. That's a 10% loss since October of last year. Let's take a look at the data so you can see exactly what's going on. So here in Liaison poll, they have the Liberals at 38% and the PC at 36%, okay? And this was back in, actually just recent, April 29th, a day ago. Now, Abacus poll, this was on April of 27. They have the PCs at 37 and Liberals at 36. So basically, it's a statistical tie with a margin of plus or minus 1%. Now, the approval rating, this is what really makes a difference, is approval is only 35% and disapproval is at 44%. That's huge. So this is also another interesting set of data points. Desire for change remains elevated. The broader mood in Ontario continues to tilt toward change. A majority, 54%, say it's definitely time for a change in government, with an additional 18 saying it would be nice to see a change. Combined, 72% of Ontarians expressed at least some desire for a new government, up slightly from earlier in the month and continuing a long-term upward trend. At the same time, just 28% expressed any preference for re-electing the current government. Oh man, that's not good. Highlighting the structural challenge facing the PCs. So this is also another interesting set of data points, and I'm going to show you real life information for this to kind of, it's anecdotal, but it kind of proves it a little bit. Regionally, the Liberals now lead in Toronto with 43%, while the PCs hold a narrow advantage in the other parts of the province, including southwestern Ontario. In the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, the two parties are closely matched, underscoring how competitive the key electoral battleground has become. Of course, age patterns highlight a familiar but increasingly consequential divide. Younger voters are heavily concentrated with the Liberals, who lead 51% among those aged 18 and 29, which is not surprising because remember OSAP, how Doug Ford eliminated the grants, told the young generation to pick a proper education and not basket weaving, and then told the universities and colleges that they can increase their tuition. So not only are those young generations being able to get less money and they're going to have to take out more of a loan, but the cost of schooling has also gone up. So of course, the younger generation is pissed. Now, let me show you something that I saw when I went into Toronto. So this is on the Gardner and Dufferin, Ontario of Doug. This was, I think, 3 or 4 days before the Abacus polling data came out. So when I saw this, I'm going, that's not good. Like, I don't know, you're like people out there, let me know if you've seen anything like this. But when you have people taking time out of their day to do things like this, protests, show their dismay of government, which a lot of people do, don't get me wrong. But you didn't see any of that for Doug Ford until he made some sort of stupid decision. But this was just some random sign on the bridge of Dufferin over the Gardner. This is an indicator of where the sentiments of the voters are going, especially in Toronto. So when I saw this, I go, ooh, this is not going to be good. And then, of course, the Abacus poll came out talking about how they were basically tied. I wasn't surprised. Now, there's so many different reasons why the Ontario voters are pissed and tired. Okay, like I talked about, fighting bike lanes, spending millions of dollars and billions of dollars for a new Ontario Science Center, the advertisement, tunneling under the 401, asinine, and then of course the Billy Bishop Island airports, the Spawn Ontario place, the Green Belt fiasco with his developer buddies, the Freedom of Information Act. Now we're not able to get any information of any of the MPPs or ministers or the staff in the offices, especially Doug Ford's phone records, because he talked to constituents. He didn't want to give out information, personal information to constituents. This is it. This is the beginning and the end of Doug Ford. And he has no one to blame, of course, but himself. And Ontario voters are just tired of the bull in the china shop way of thinking. Because this is the guy who thought Trump was going to be good for Canada, for trade. Now, to his benefit, he wasn't like Pierre Polyev and said, oh, Trump's not a danger. You really shouldn't be concerned about him. Doug Ford really, basically said and changed his tune quickly that what the hell is, Trump doing? He's attacking us, and stood up for Canada to a certain degree. But that doesn't make up for all these other decisions. I support him 100% of the alcohol, banning the alcohol made and produced in the U.S. on the LCBO shelves, 100% that. But then he goes and tries to use the same tactic for Crown Royal, even though it's produced and manufactured here in Canada. And then the deal he got, the $24 million, which was supposedly good for the workers, only $1 million of that 24 went to Amherstburg, and not really to the workers of that bottling plant, to the community, and they still don't know where that money is going to go for the community. But the other 23 went to Toronto, went to farms in southern Ontario, Scarborough, for other bottling plants, not manufacturing, but labeling, advertisements, which benefits companies in Toronto. He's not a deal maker. He's got one or two tricks in his tool belts, and that's about it. I don't even know. Like he has these ideas of grandiose ideas of his legacy, what he can do for Toronto and Toronto only, because a lot of his decisions are based on Toronto and the residents of Toronto or the city of Toronto, because that's his love. That's where he was city council, his businesses. He's got a love for Toronto, but ignores the rest of Ontario to a certain degree. Subconsciously, consciously, I don't know, but it's just basically all for Toronto. And there's more to Ontario than Toronto. So this is the beginning of the end for Doug Ford and his PC government. He is a very close second to Pierre Polyev in terms of blowing the leads. Talking out both sides of his mouth in terms of being most transparent government when he eliminated the Freedom of Information Act legislation, so no one can investigate him. And he has got some Trump tendencies where he just doesn't like when people ask him valid questions on the policies he's implemented. And the decisions he makes are not really fact-based. It's more of feelings, just like when he eliminated the speed cameras, calling it a tax grab, where he talks about there's better ways to reduce speeding, and we're still waiting on that data and those ideas that he was going to implement to reduce the speeding. Because a lot of the municipalities that have kept those cameras up are seeing increased in speeding in those on those roads. The only reason he got rid of those cameras is because this is my feeling, is he got pinched multiple times. Because the way he explained how the frustrations of those speed cameras sounds exactly like someone who's gotten hit multiple times with speeding tickets. Anyways, that's it for me. Let me know what you think. What? Let me know what what party you think you're going to be voting for, but not even what party, but what platform would a party have to say to get you to vote for them? Besides have not being, Doug Ford and the PC, like what would it be? Would it be like bringing back the Freedom of Information Act, or what about eliminating the return to office mandates, allowing the public sector workers to do a hybrid work schedule like they used to, because they were producing, they were getting their work done. Because God knows that even Doug Ford wasn't following the return to office mandate. In the month of January, what was it, like 9 or 10 days? He worked from home, took team meetings with ministers, personal days, whatever it was, scheduled. Like, do what I say, not what I do. This would help those taxpayers save money in terms of transportation, especially now with the cost of fuel, work-life balance, and help push the industry back to a hybrid schedule, and not have all these banks and institutions forcing everybody back to the office in an archaic system that we know the hybrid system works, and people were happier this way. Would it also be for OSAP and actually helping the younger generation not come out of school with tremendous amount of debt? I think those things alone would win any party the next election coming up. Anyways, guys, take care. We'll talk later.